So let's begin. Hi everybody, welcome to the last day, sadly the last day of Monster Bash 2019, where we had a great weekend. I hope you did too. We're back with Haunted Barns Collection. We have Miss Jess Ferratu, you all know her. My lovely wife Diane. I bought the Flory that I won last night. I forgot to thank my wife, who gets me in the suit at 2 in the morning, sometimes for the spook shows, sometimes a little later, and my wife Diane, who I can't get into the suit by myself. But I promise to give you the same furry perfection each Monster Bash. Right? So we have some stuff here. We didn't bring a lot, but what we brought is very, very fragile. So thank God it made the trip. And we're located in Orange County, New York, in the town of Goshen. Yep, you know some Orange County people right there. So I'm going to go down the line over here. Jess, you want to start with a costume? This is a costume from the 1970 American International production of Wuthering Heights, which starred a very, very young Timothy Dalton. And these were borrowed from a school in England, a theater school, and they outfitted a lot of the background people. And that's a great version of Wuthering Heights if you've never seen it. It's very sad, and it's really spooky. And so that's Wuthering Heights, 1970, one of Jessica's favorite films. We'll go over here to a prop. You can all take a look at this later on. This is a Roman soldier that was used in the galley sequence of Ben-Hur. 1959 Ben-Hur. And they were made, let's see if I have a photo of it. Yeah, they were made for the sea battle. And actually you can see them right here, they're all on the ship. They were made for the big sea battle, where Judah Ben-Hur is sentenced to death, basically, on a galley. And the ships rammed each other, and these little Roman soldiers were used on the deck in the long shots of the miniature ships. And by miniature, I mean the miniature ship probably went from about there to here, and was about this big, in a studio tank in Italy. And what's funny is you see the men fighting on the deck, and one ship's ramming the other, and they're swinging on over. But in the long shots, you see the Roman soldiers, they're not moving. Yeah, so nobody's moving on the deck except in the live action shots. So that's one of the surviving pieces from Ben-Hur. It's still got a little bit of color onto it. And there you go, that's just. This right here, and you can take a better look at it later on. In Fantastic Voyage, when 20th Century Fox was fighting to stay afloat after Cleopatra nearly doomed the studio. So they came up with some really original ideas, and one of the great films they came up with was Fantastic Voyage. And these pieces here, there's one particular sequence where, if you remember the Proteus, a little medical team is shrunken down to microscopic size, which I wish they could do in real life. Make things so much easier. And they travel through various parts of the body. In this case, they travel through the lungs. And these little black pieces that Stephen Boyd referred to as, what are those, rocks? He said, no, they're not rocks, they're pieces of nicotine that are in, that were in the patient's lungs. And these are little pieces of that that hung up on the set that would fall down, and these are pieces from that. So that's a Fantastic Voyage. One of my, do you love that film?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, they tried to remake it. I think they did it as a comedy with Martin Short, and they tried to remake it seriously. But these are full-size sets that were reused for, you turned it around and it was reused for a whale's stomach in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. And this is another shot. You can come up later on and see this is a studio shot of the big pieces and small pieces in the lungs. So don't smoke, kids. Don't smoke. Because you won't have that medical team. Let's go to, you want to go to another costume? Jess is going to show you something really special. This is from 1960, a wonderful film we all love called The Innocents. And this is Miss Flora, who was played by Pamela Franklin. We believe this is one of her dolls that she had on the bed, because it's really, really small, and she wasn't that small. And this is an alternate, most likely an alternate costume used for Miss Flora. There was Miles and Flora, and they were torturing their headmistress, if you remember. It's based on The Turn of the Screw. And we believe that Pamela Franklin, this was made for Pamela Franklin, but wasn't used, because all 19th century children went to bed in sleeping gowns and candles. They lit candles because there was no electricity, which sometimes had disastrous results. So that's from The Innocents, how many fans of The Innocents? Yeah, it's the spookiest ghost story. The Haunting is another spooky, spooky ghost story, but I grew up watching The Innocents. That was maybe on Channel 2, and The Haunting was on maybe Channel 7 or something, on the late movie. But really, a really, really good film. The boy, who's the boy? Martin Stevens. Yeah, Martin Stevens. We met Martin Stevens, and he was just wonderful, wonderful. And I believe he might have been at a Monster Bash, I'm not sure. Yeah, he's just a wonder. So that's The Innocents. And we'll go down the line over here. This is an amazing thing, and this is why it pays to kind of look at oddity shops, and Janet and James know this only too well. This is a piece of one of an RKO Pictures piece of Dante. It's a sculpture of Dante that was used in many, many RKO productions, including The Most Dangerous Game. You'll find out, which besides this, I trade this in because you'll find out that RKO film has some of the original King Kong models in it as decor. Bela Lugosi's lab has the Styracosaurus as one of his little spooky things on his mantle. But this was also used in Genius at Work and a lot of RKO productions. Whenever they wanted spooky decor, you'd walk in the house and something would be on the wall like that. And we found this, and it has an RKO tag left inside, scratched into the plaster. So, yeah, this was a rarity. We found this in a town near us, and we said to the guy, before I paid for it, which was a little stupid of me, do you know what this is? And he said no. Did you ever hear of the movie The Most Dangerous Game? Did you ever hear of RKO Pictures? No. Did you ever hear of movie props that are used, sometimes they end up in... No. So I said, all right, I'll take this for $10. He says, oh, good, I'm glad to get rid of it. So, there you go. So it pays to... you can come up. I was going to walk around Monster Bash with this, but I think you've had enough guerrilla antics. These are pieces of the Brontosaurus from King Kong, the original 1933 King Kong. And you'll have to take a better look at it when you get up here. But and I'd pass it around, but I know I wouldn't get it back. Yeah, this was, the models from King Kong crumbled. They're no longer around. They crumbled into dust. And Peter Jackson took what he could, paid a lot of money for them. And yeah, I would have had luck with that if the guy had one of the models there. And they're all, what's left of them are at a warehouse in New Zealand. They're at his warehouse, which nobody can visit because we can't go to New Zealand. But Forey Ackerman had them all. And these pieces were sent to me, as many of these pieces that you see were all destined to be trashed. And a lot of stuff that Forey saved, he sent me in the early to mid 70s, I think in an effort to have me, as an 11-year-old, stop writing him. So he would send me various things, and the great stuff was at the bottom of the box. We call them the crumbles. Stuff that he would stick in a mask, but the stuff would crumble off from other things. That's how I got pieces of Gorgo. Small little crumbles of Gorgo that we display. We put a light on top. And I think I displayed them once before, but yeah, you can take a good look at this. This thing here, how many people remember Atlantis, the Lost Continent? This is a piece of the submarine that surfaces at the beginning. And the story behind this is, this was a gigantic MGM prop. A gigantic... I think we have a coloring page. You want to look at a coloring page for the kids? Yeah, we'll get you one. This was a gigantic MGM prop, and during the MGM auction of 1970, someone bought it. It went to somebody. God knows what they did with it. Then Forey bought it, and Forey had it in his yard, in front of the Acker Mansion for many years, and then someone stole it from his yard. So this is the and pieces went around. I don't know whether they were pieces sent to people for ransom. You know, here we have a piece of your submarine. But this is one of the pieces of the great Atlantean submarine. There's a picture in there of Forey standing on it in his yard. And I don't know, it may be the last piece, other pieces may show up over time, but I was very lucky to get this. I don't know where it came from, I only know that there may be more pieces of it. And a fellow that we contacted's grandfather worked for a company called Project Unlimited, which was made up of Wah Chang, Tim Barr, sometimes Jim Danforth. And they did work, this is also from Project Unlimited. This is, they did work for the Outer Limits. And this is the alien foot of many there's used in the Outer Limits, including, I don't know if you know the alien from the Architects of Fear. There's an alien, great little alien in an episode called The Mice. And these were generic legs, and anytime they had a big bin, so anytime they needed a leg or an arm, they couldn't redo it because the cost would have been really out of this world. So they made these things and they reused them. This has holes here that look like suckers, but I'm sure claws were attached to these. And this was sculpted by my personal hero, Wah Ming Chang, who was a craftsman, an artisan, worked on Time Machine, Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm. We just recently found out he did the masks in The King and I, which was interesting. And he did so much stuff, and he lived to about 85, I believe, and then he passed on. Worked for George Powell, worked on the Puppetoons, but this is one of the Outer Limits legs that he did. As you know, I brought this last time. Our friend from England, Terry Marrison, was a school kid when he appeared as one of the Selenites in the first Men in the Moon, Ray Harryhausen. And this is one of the masks that he wore. And basically, what they would do is in certain scenes, Ray would animate in close-ups, and then in the backgrounds they would add school children. They needed really small kids, like they did in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They used young girls as the aliens. And Terry wrote me and he said, Joey, I remember that mask because all the kids had them, and they had like an entire insect costume. And he said the director was so angry at us because he wouldn't let us sit down on our cone. So they couldn't sit. So, yeah, so that's First Men in the Moon. And that was designed based on Ray Harryhausen's sketches. Yeah.
How heavy is that? How heavy is that?
How heavy is that?
Yeah.
No, it's not heavy at all. It's made of foam rubber. And it was made to be lightweight because they had to swarm all over the space sphere. And they had to swarm, yeah.
There's eye holes? Can you see through it?
Yeah, you can see through it, yeah. The holes are here. And it's very interesting because they don't resemble the animated moon creatures at all. It really resembles the moon calf. Does anybody remember the moon calf? The giant animated cow, basically, caterpillar cow that the moon creatures harvested and then ate. But that actually looks more like them. So, Jess, you want to hold that up? We're back to George Powell, we're back to Hua Ming Chang, and we're back to Atlantis, the Lost Continent. That's some elements that were used, some columns. At the end, everything goes to pot in Atlantis. The guy starts going crazy with the death ray, and the city sinks beneath the sea. Buildings fall. It looks like the last days of Pompeii. In fact, they use scenes from various other epics, like the fall of the Roman Empire and stuff like that in Atlantis, the Lost Continent. So those are some columns. There's some evidence of the burning. They burned a lot of stuff to get this stuff. And it was done by a guy named Arnold Gillespie, who was a great effects guy. And he stood in water tanks up to here. And Arnold Gillespie devised a formula for making foam. When you see foam in the ocean, in ship scenes and stuff like that, no CGI. He devised his own formula for making the foam. And he did that for Atlantis. He did that for Ben-Hur. He worked on Ben-Hur too. And I'd like to know how he did that, because I have no idea. There's no writings about how he did that. I think that's, did we cover it all? Oh, okay, well, we're going to open it up for questions, but I'm going to, as usual, I like to dedicate the show to my dad, who was in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and The Wrong Man, and On the Waterfront. Yeah, and we won't ever forget him. He's here at every show. And there's another man I'd like to dedicate it to, and that's Wes Shank. So we just appreciate. One of the first shows we did here, Wes was sitting right there, and he had his thumb up like this. He kept giving me the thumbs up, and it's like my dad sitting there, you know. And it was just amazing to me. And the tribute last night, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, this entire room. And when I got called for the rondo, I was sitting on that box over there, and I was so excited I fell into the box. None of you guys saw that except Cortland and everybody sitting over here, because I just went, oh my God. So if there's any, oh, here's a picture of the submarine surfacing, yeah. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to ask about anything, answer anything you'd like to know.
How did you come to know Wai Chang? Like you said, I've long been an admirer of his craftsmanship and his various...
Because in the 70s, my father told me to write to all these people that he researched for me. And I was trying to write to people like Ray Harryhausen, other people that were movie stars that were much, much bigger. And they'd never write back. So my father said to me, write to the people that are behind the scenes that would never expect to get a letter or something. And that's what I did. And I got letters from Phil Kellison, who worked on The Giant Behemoth, Jack the Giant Killer. I got letters from Wai Chang, and of course Forey. Forey was sort of almost the instigator for that too, because he'd forward everything for me. He knew them like that. And so that's how we got to know. And I communicated with him about 4 or 5 times. Phil Kellison invited me over to, while they were making Caveman in the 80s, but I couldn't go. So I said, well, I've got a job to do here. I can't go to your studio. So it was an amazing thing for a kid to grow up and have these things and more as his play friends. And when we do our shows at Paramount Theater, where we take out everything at Paramount, the entire stage is full of our stuff. The first thing I tell people is, they say, well, weren't you scared as a kid seeing something like that? I said, my mom was. My mom thought some of these things followed her around, you know. But I always said these were like my playgrounds. So, you know, I didn't go out and play ball with the kids. I did other things. I ran out with them in other ways. But this stuff was always right there by my side. So, any other questions about anything? Yeah.
Where does your collection stop? I mean, because I know it's the barn and everything, you know, are you still a collector? Do you reach a certain period and then you say, okay, I'm not going past, you know, the 70s, you know?
Yeah, I have no wall space, but I'm able to put stuff away in storage. So the only time it ever gets to see the light of day is when I display it at shows. But most of the time, you know, whatever I can fit. We had to move, so Haunted Barn, which my dad coined the name, he said, this is a barn. You know? I go, yeah, Dad, why don't you make it haunted? And so the name Haunted Barn came up. But yeah, but it's still getting stuff. Still getting stuff.
We have from Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus?
Yeah, we have like some tombstone.
Yeah.
And Pepper, that's one of the new movies, right?
Yeah.
So the newest edition is what you say?
No, they're not new additions.
Not
They're
new editions, but they're from more recent films.
yeah, they're we have pieces from Hocus Pocus, from more recent films, and that's how they come to us. More recent films. I don't know if you remember seeing. We call him Bernie. He's a gigantic, mutated, infected man from the movie I Am Legend. So, any other questions? In the back?
What else do you have from the Outer Limits original series?
I have it. You'll never see it. I can't bring it. It's too fragile. It's a creature that Wai Chang made that is seen in various forms in the Outer Limits, but not in the form I had. If you look at old issues or look at pictures of the Acker Mansion, you'll see this thing. It's got like white hair. It looks like an ogre. You'll see it on Forey's mantle. It was there for years. I never cleaned it because, like the first Men in the Moon mask, it still has what we call Forey dust on it. So we don't clean anything. But it can't be moved. If I move it, it'll fall apart. So it's kind of on a big display shelf and says good morning to me each day. Each day I come into the room.
Soy
No, it's not. It's something different than that. And it was later, the piece that I have was later used in other shows whenever they needed like strange Star Trek other things, yeah. Yeah, but it's got hair on it. If you look at pictures of it from Forey's, you can see how it's aged. It's sort of gotten bigger, you know. So we try to keep it nice. It'll definitely fall apart. I can bring it and throw pieces out to you guys.
I get hit in the head.
Yeah, yeah, Millie.
So I know like in antiques, you know, some things you want to clean and some things you don't want to clean because they haven't seen that. What about memorabilia? Is it the same way?
Stuff here, you mean?
Anything, yeah.
Yeah, we don't clean anything.
No, you just keep it.
No, we get something, and I cleaned one thing one time, and it turned it into something completely different. And I swore I'd never do that again. If you have like wooden furniture or something, and it's got like a haze on it, you say, I gotta get this off of it. It turns it into something completely different. So we keep everything exactly how we found them. And some pieces come in horrible. They come in really, really dirty. But we like it that way, so.
Where did most of the stuff in the Acker Mansion wind up? I know there's an auction before he died and after he died, whatever.
Yeah, it ended up, most of it ended up with collectors. Most of it ended up before, I mean, I was getting it when he was, you know, still going strong. But he had to pay, Forrest J had to pay for his medical bills. So he had to sell off a lot of stuff. And he never, Cortland and I were talking about this yesterday, he never put anything in cases. Everything was out. People came into the Acker Mansion. I was there 2 times. The second time I wasn't allowed upstairs because people had gone up there and had taken things from him. But they would touch stuff, and that's how the Kong models ended up getting so destroyed, is that he'd let people touch things. Later on, if you look at older pictures of Acker Mansion 2, not the original, you'll see that things are in glass cases. Everybody that took a photograph, there's always glare. So, but most of it, it's all gone. It's all gone. It's in the hands of collectors. You know, come to Monster Bash each year and you'll see me with some of it. So, and I'm sure there's people that have stuff that's so much more amazing than what I have. And, you know, I try to contact those people, but, you know, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I know every now and then I see on TCM they'll have some guy like, oh, such and such is going up for auction. Have you ever looked at one of those and seen something that just jumped out at you that you tried for, or that really impressed you, or is it just too expensive?
No, too expensive. It impresses the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But too expensive. And you know, if I had the money to do that, yeah, these are certain. But I found just with contacts with different people that I've contacted, I got my stuff when it was not common to have this, and a lot of the other collection too, which again, some of the pieces were found in studio trash. So, but I would love to get something in auction.
What's the coolest prop you've seen that come up in the last few years that really impressed you? Damn, if I had a
Well, the most fascinating thing is something that my dear friend, Wes Shank, had called me up, said, what's new? Any new stuff? I go, oh, not really, Wes. Got some few things like this. How about you? Anything new? He says, well, I just bought the Krell lock from Forbidden Planet. So that's an amazing prop. And Wes had some unbelievable things. Unbelievable. You know, and I was fascinated. I was fascinated by, I mean, much more stuff than just the blob. And he came to our house and he saw the original barn when it was a barn, and just was also knocked out. So it was like a mutual appreciation society, you know? But I'd rather be down his basement because he had so much great stuff. Any other questions?
There's a robot girl from Metropolis. Didn't Forey have that at one time?
Yeah, Forey had a copy of that built by, I think, Bill Malone, who built Robbie. And Robbie sold for millions. I don't know where that ended up. I don't know where that ended up.
Could it be the one that is at the Science Center in Pittsburgh?
I don't know. I can't be sure. That's something you can look up. I don't know.
Because they have they have the robot Hall of Fame there.
Yeah, I don't
Up at
know.
the Science Center. It's included with the admission. They might be originals. I don't know if they're originals or.
I doubt it. I think it went to Germany. I think a lot of this stuff, Forey's stuff went on display in Germany, and with the hopes that it would, when it came back to Los Angeles, to Forey got sick then, so, but the hope was always that the city of Los Angeles would open up a museum for Forey, for all his stuff. It never happened, and it's something that many people have, it's nonsensical, because when he was paying for his medical bills, he was really quite destitute. And all his famous friends really could have helped him out a little bit more, I think. But that's just something that I feel. Any other questions?
So when you find a spot to display some of this stuff, is that where it stays forever, or do you rotate things out in certain areas?
Oh no, we do lots of shows. We do shows at like old theaters, old one-screen theaters, the Paramount Theater. We do shows for UFO festivals, any kind of festivals and display events that kids could come and look at this stuff. And we've been taken care of so well. They really appreciate all this, and we do it for the kids. We do it so the kids could see it. You know, us old timers, we've seen it all before, and we love it. But when the kids see it, they go out and they try to become filmmakers. They try to become makeup artists. They may want something from a movie too and keep it, you know, like their little display. You know, start their own little museum. Okay, well, we're off on a 7-hour trip back home. So I want to thank you all. We'll see you next year.